Hey everyone, welcome back to Just in the Nick of Crime. We have a brand new day of Diddy drama. It is Friday. It is the last day of the week for the trial and very likely, possibly, Cassie's last day on the stand. But we're going to talk a little bit about that. Now, the good news about this morning is that the way that I have been doing these things up till now, it has been incredibly time consuming. It still is incredibly time consuming, which is not a complaint, but I figured out a way to streamline it just a little bit better so there's not as much redundancy and that the things are kind of recapped to you guys a little bit quicker, a little bit more condensed without leaving any of the important stuff out. And I'm also going to tell you that when we get to it, on this particular episode, there's one thing that I want to delve more into, but I have not had a chance to put it together, so I will, which is basically all of the multiple of the prostitutes and people that Cassie was forced to be with, but specifically a little bit more in depth on one of them, Jonathan Oddi or Oddi, I think it's Oddi. More specifically on him, he was brought up today. We're going to touch on him very lightly, but I want to do a whole separate segment on just that entire with Jonathan and these other men. So we're going to put that together in the next day, hopefully, maybe even today, so that we can do it. Because once I'm out of town, then I'm out of town. So, and we're leaving tomorrow afternoon. Now, that being said, let's jump into this. The first thing I kind of want to just talk about. Oh yeah, real quick. Sorry, forgot the things. If you are on TikTok, please tap that screen. Let's get that to 10,000. Instagram, guys, please hit that follow button. If you are on Insta, you are on TikTok, you are not able to stay for this entire thing. This is being recorded on YouTube. You can watch the midday and end of day recaps on here whenever you want. And then I'm also trying to do Substacks that show most of my notes. So you can check Substack out as well. Subscribe. Both of those are free to do. There are options, obviously, for paid subscriptions. Those are not required. I will never make it so you guys have paid only content. That's not who I am as a creator. The people who choose to pay to subscribe is just to support the work that I'm doing. And of course, it's appreciated, but never required. Now, that being said, I want to start with Chris Brown because Chris Brown's name was brought up and Chris Brown was also in the news yesterday. So let me just get right into this. So don't jump to conclusions yet on Chris Brown because it's not as nefarious as you might think it is, at least the way that he came up in this trial. So she testified over Diddy being obsessive over who she was talking to or dating, even when they were still broken up. And she said that he took her phone on several occasions, including when he suspected she was talking to other men. And that's when Chris Brown's name came up. So basically during cross, Cassie was questioned about a past incident that made Sean Combs angry. They said, quote, "Do you remember when Sean thought you were dancing with Chris Brown?" "I do, but I was not. I wasn't dancing with Chris Brown." She testified that he was obsessive over who she was talking to or dating, again, even if they were broken up. And she would take her phone as punishment, even when he suspected she was talking to other guys. And remember, at the same time, he was talking to a bunch of women, having relationships, having relations with other women on this whole time. It was kind of a do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. So they asked more details and she said, quote, "He'd take my phone, my car, my watch when he was angry." When asked if she recalled Combs taking her phone in 2013 after suspecting she had danced with Chris Brown, she responded that she didn't remember much about the incident besides the fact that she wasn't dancing with Chris. There was also another incident where Combs took her phone in August of 2016 after learning she was dating another man, an NFL player whose name she did not name. Because at the time, she said they weren't together and were not in a great place. And while driving to a doctor's appointment, she unlocked her phone and Combs grabbed it and ran out of the car, leaving her behind. So think about this. They're talking. They're not really together. They're not in a great place. He's going with her to a doctor's appointment. She opens her phone to unlock it. He snatches it out of her hand and then runs out of the car, runs down the street. Her mother called the police when Cassie arrived home without her phone. She later got it back from Diddy later that same day. She was not asked to elaborate on the police involvement on that. She said this, quote, "When you're not with somebody, it's not cheating. I felt it's a technicality in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. We're not married." She then ended up moving on. The defense moved on quickly to another topic after that exchange. But I want to bring this up part because Chris Brown was actually in the news, and this necessarily doesn't have to do with Chris, right? But what I want to tell you is that Chris basically was recently arrested. His name is kind of surfacing after Yeah, somebody just said it in Instagram that basically he was reprimanded in custody in the UK over an alleged bottle attack at a London nightclub. He was arrested. This was yesterday, at the Salford's Lowry Hotel after and later charged with grievous bodily harm for allegedly attacking music producer Abe uh, Diaw at the Tape Club in London's Mayfair back in 23. He was 30. He was 36 at the time. He's 36 now. Appeared in the Manchester Magistrates Court, where the case was sent to Southwark Crown Court due to the severity of the charges. The next hearing is scheduled for June 13th. Chris Brown is a problem, y'all. You want to talk about somebody who's abusive? There's another one. Put him and Diddy in a room and just see what happens. Okay, so now let's talk about who else, because we now have some additional information on who is expected to testify. The names are kind of trickling out. We know that there's 4 accusers, Cassie being one of them. We've made some guesses as to some of the others. And I think this is 2 of them. One is Dawn Richard, who is a former member of the group that Diddy created, the female group Danity Kane. She's expected to take the stand next, so probably Monday. She alleges that Combs SA'd her, deprived her of food and sleep, and refused to pay her fairly. Her lawsuit is one of the dozens of claims filed against him in a civil court as well. Also, former fellow Danity Kane member Aubrey O'Day is also expected to testify. She has publicly spoken about her experiences with Combs and has traveled to New York to prepare for her appearance in court. So both people, both members of 2 of the members of Danity Kane are expected to testify. If I remember going back, don't hold me to this, guys, but I think the 3rd member was paid off, is not going to say anything. There was something weird going about it back in September, October. I can't remember. I should have probably looked into it before I went live, but I was just trying to get the updates. And not that it's necessarily relevant. 2 of the members are doing it. Now, the judge is still frustrated over this whole Cassie situation. Basically, he has had to scold Diddy's lawyer, Anna Estava, over repeated disputes regarding during Cassie's cross-exam. She said the judge basically urged both sides to stay on track, aiming for Cassie to finish her testimony by end of day today, 4:30 Eastern time. One dispute that they had involved a video Combs made in rehab about his 2016 assault on Cassie, where he was seen wandering through nature, quote unquote, and talking about religion and God. The prosecutor, Emily Johnson, argued that it was a sympathy play on the defense's part, but the judge ended up ruling after going back and forth. Defense said that they weren't going to show the video. And so basically the judge ruled it now a moot issue, but that was one of the things that they had issues about. Prosecutors also accused the defense of deliberately dragging out cross-examination to force Ventura to return Monday, which would give Diddy the weekend to review transcripts. And they warned this could risk a mistrial if Ventura, who is pregnant, goes into labor over the weekend. He also complained that the defense has taken longer. This is the judge, prosecuting, that the prosecution has complained that he's taken longer than the prosecution's. I'm trying to read my notes here are terrible on this one. They complained after the defense has taken longer than the prosecution's direct examination, asked about civil lawsuits instead of sticking to the criminal case, wasted time on lengthy, explicit texts, and sandbagged them with 400 exhibits last minute. Prosecutors asked the judge to order cross-examine to end by 4:30 on Friday. I have a feeling Cassie's coming back Monday as long as she doesn't go into labor. So yeah, basically that's where that's at. They're basically accusing them of filibustering this whole thing, and judge is not happy over it. All right, that's kind of what's going on. So now let's talk about how Cassie's demeanor is on the stand. We didn't really get a recap today. You guys know that I like to tell y'all what they're wearing. When they come in, who's there that day. We really didn't get that much information other than, of course, Diddy's mom's there. Alex Fine is there for Cassie. And I know that's most, if not all, the kids are there today. They didn't really give any specifics. I think that Cassie's wearing a pinstripe suit, but I like to try to give you guys the picture of kind of what's going on. And we just really didn't get that much of that today, unfortunately. But what we do have is that Cassie is showing frustration on the stand during cross. As she's been being pressed. One of the things that they talked about was Cassie. She basically said on a prior statement, Anna Stava pressed Cassie on this statement, saying that she was still developing. Cassie was still developing when she met Combs, and she said, "Women keep developing after 22, don't you think?" And so Estavo said, "You're not suggesting you weren't fully developed at 22." And Cassie looked up, turning her head from side to side, shaking her head no, basically saying no, which, let's be real, your full frontal cortex isn't even fully developed until you're 25. So that makes sense. And at 19, when she first met him, which in my opinion is when grooming started, and other people disagree with me on that, and that's fine. But you can have your opinion. My opinion is mine, and I'm going to say it on my platform. But to then kissing her at 21, she was still a kid, and he's a grown man with a lot more experience. Me as a 43-year-old, almost 43-year-old guy, birthday's in 3 days. I would have no interest in dating a 19 or 21-year-old if I was single. There's literally nothing in common other than one thing. So if you want anything deep and meaningful, you're probably not going to get that at that point in time. You're at very different stages in your life. That's just my opinion. Now, here was something that I thought was pretty big. Cassie does not hate Diddy. So during this very tense cross exam, Cassie was pressed about her feelings towards Sean Combs, even though she's accused him of R-ing her back in 2018, saying, quote, "You didn't hate him then, and you still don't hate him, and you don't still hate him now? I don't hate him." When asked if she had love for him, she answered, "I have love for the past, what it was." The defense, keep in mind, is accusing Cassie of changing the date of the alleged R and showed jurors affectionate messages that she sent Combs after the incident. Remember, they're trying to show that she was a willing participant, not somebody that was coerced. They're also trying to prove that she's not a reliable witness, which in my opinion, she has proved to be very reliable. And, here's one of the things, and I can't even take credit for this statement, even though it's true. One of my commenters kind of pointed this out and said that it's really easy to have a fairly flawless testimony, a pretty perfect testimony where things aren't, going back and forth and you're not really having a lot of discrepancies, is when you're telling the truth. I mean, obviously that's for a jury to decide, but usually when people are that composed and are able to keep stories straight that way, especially after, grueling days and hours on a stand, typically it's because what you're sharing, the version of events that you have, is the true version of events. That's just, again, my opinion. We went back to highlighting text about the freak-offs, right? So today, Anastavo introduced a 2010 text exchange. We're going to talk about the text here in a second, specifically between Sean and Cassie discussing their freak-offs, a conversation she had previously addressed during direct examination. So they're doing this in cross. She testified that she had considered telling Sean she no longer wanted to participate, but held back after seeing how he reacted. The jury saw messages spanning several days in April of 2010. Sorry, I lost my notes here. In April of 2010, where the two discussed their relationship. At one point, Combs told Ventura they needed to do some soul searching. Cassie expressed feeling unloved, prompting Sean to reply, "You don't know what it is to take care of me. You don't know what it is to take care of me." It's always about him, guys. Everything is about him. On April 19th, she texted, "I want to talk to you about something tomorrow. Going to sleep. Love you." He replied, "Is it going to stress me out? What is it about?" Freak off. It can wait. It's not a big deal. He goes, "Now you don't want to do it anymore." "Oh, I already know. You so predictable." "Really? Okay, since that's definitely what it was, we'll leave it at that then, since I'm so predictable. Have a good night." Then he goes, "Whatever, baby. I'm not going to play no games with you, and you ain't going to keep shutting me down." She goes, "I'm not shutting you down. I never do. If anything, it's always been the other way around. I wasn't going to say I didn't want to do it anymore." Now, going to some of the escorts, and again, like I said a minute ago, or when I first started this, if you're coming in late on TikTok or Instagram, this is on YouTube, so you can go back and watch the whole thing if you missed any of it. But what I talked about a minute ago is the fact that I really want to do a separate segment, which I will hopefully get to do maybe today. I want to do it before I go to Florida. Talking about some of the different male escorts, as well as specifically a little bit more in depth on Jonathan Oddi, who was brought up today. So just keep that in mind, that's coming hopefully today. It'll be on YouTube. I'll go live, of course, on Insta and TikTok, but the photos will be for TikTokers. Photos will be on Insta and YouTube only when that happens. But again, my goal is to get that up today. So that being said, Cassie testified that she and Sean used an escort service called Cowboys for Angels, which was featured on the Showtime series Gigolos. I had never heard of that website before. I've never seen that show, but I didn't know that. She confirmed she was concerned some of the escorts that they use might appear on the show and expose their relationship. During cross, the defense attorney suggested that some of the escorts involved in the freak-offs were featured on the show, and Cassie replied she had never seen the series and couldn't confirm yes or no on that. Now, here's where it gets into Jonathan Oddi. Now, so for those of y'all who don't know, just a real quick background. Jonathan Oddi was arrested for a shooting back at Donald Trump's Doral Resort in Florida. He was arrested immediately. And The rumor is that he was either trying to expose something, he was trying to get attention, possibly taking Trump out. I'm not really sure what the true story is, but what I can tell you is that it got covered up and buried pretty damn quick. And for transparency's sake, I'm not saying this because Trump's name's associated with it. I think because what we're learning is that it was for Diddy's sake and Diddy not wanting what there to come out. I don't believe that Donald Trump was there that day. I don't, based on what I've kind of read. And it was just he chose that resort because it would get a lot of attention. That's kind of what I'm starting to gather from this. But basically, she said that she did engage in a freak off with Jonathan Oddi, who is the man who opened up fire at, again, that resort back in, I believe it was I think it was 18. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. She had believed that Oddi had secretly been recording them during the encounter. After his arrest, Oddi told Florida police that he had been Combs's S slave, claiming I had S with Cassie and Sean. And basically, guys, this is going to get a little graphic. Sean would self-gratify and tell me what to do to Cassie. I was like a slave for them. That's what I was. On top of that, Jonathan Oddi also, and I did this in a different video. I'll see if I can find it and put it back up whenever I do this whole breakdown again. Actually supplied and showed an NDA that he had to sign for dealing with the freak offs with Sean Combs. Okay. And it's got his signature, it's got Sean's on it, and it's an older NDA. So this part does exist. Like, this exists, and that's why I want to kind of go more in depth on this right here. Somebody on Instagram just said, I'm so tired of the victim blaming. LC, you and me both. I'm actually going to be addressing that toward the end of this. We're getting there. So don't go away, because I think you're going to like what I have to say. And if somebody said the N-words, if I have a mod on Instagram, please get them out. We don't accept that. We don't have that. I do not tolerate racism. The CBOP, I don't know how to get them out. If I have anybody, I think any of my people who are mods on Instagram, get that person out of here. That's not, I'm going to report the comment now. That's not something that we tolerate in here. Everybody is to feel safe, and we're not going to call people that word ever on any of my platforms and it be acceptable. Ever. I need to figure. Okay, so I'm going to figure out how to get some more mods on Instagram, guys. Real quick, guys. Sorry for my people on Instagram who had to experience that, especially people of color, people who've been offended by this by reading it. My apologies. You all don't deserve that. Please know that that is not something that I agree with. I'm looking at you guys as I'm doing this. That is not something that I agree with or support. I am vehemently opposed to any types of racism, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, anything like that. And anybody and everybody is welcome here, and that is not going to be tolerated. So my apologies for you all that had to experience that. And we'll work on I'll work on next time for our Instagram that we're going to have more mods on here. So please bear with me on that. Sorry, guys. I hate that we have to do that. I hate that people like this exist. I hate that people like that exist. So going back, talking about recordings, got me a little bit off. I didn't realize until somebody said that. Carolina, shoot me a direct message. DM me on Instagram, and we can do that. So jurors heard a recording of a distressed call from Cassie threatening a man who claimed that he had an explicit video of her. This video was made allegedly during a freak off. The recording, which was made by her in 2013 during an encounter in Atlantic City. Here's her pleading to see the video and repeatedly threatening the man if it became public. Now, I believe that this is one of those things that we talked about in the last couple of days, as far as there being a video that she was worried about that Sean told her to go meet and try to figure out what was up and how this video got leaked. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that this sounds like it's the same event. And here's what she said. She said, and I'm going to have to, so when I use the word unalive, because social media doesn't like the real word, know that it is the word that starts with a K. So it's got 2 L's in it and an ED. That helps. She goes, I've never unalived anyone in my life, but I will unalive you. This was punctuating her threats with profanity, apparently. In one moment, she warned, I'm going to unalive you, and then he's going to unalive you again, referring to Diddy doing that. She testified that Combs urged her to confront the man and later made efforts to ensure the video didn't surface. She told jurors she believed the man secretly filmed her and Combs during a freak off, and Cassie confirmed Sean was also worried about the videos of himself leaking. So whether such a video existed or how the incident was resolved was not established in her testimony. But because of the way this was said, makes me believe that this is the same incident that she was talking about the other day. All right. Um, so one thing they also brought back for this um, is that they went back to the hotel attack. This has been a big point of contention for the hotel attack. And by the way, I don't have them on. I don't have any photos today on YouTube, but I do have photos of some of what the hotel looked like after the attack. So I'll try to put those when I do the Substack. I'll try to put them in the Substack article if I remember to do that for today's midday updates. But she returned to the stand Friday, talking about the hotel attack. She had her Ventura. The defense had Cassie read aloud a text she had sent to Sean after the incident, where he was seen on video slamming, kicking, and dragging her at the LA hotel. She said, quote, "I'm not a rag doll. I'm somebody's child." Which to me, look, I know I'm not supposed to have commentary on this, but to me, somebody saying something that is, you can hear the distress in a text like that. Like, like, I'm somebody's kid. I'm somebody's child. Why would you treat me that way? I'm not a rag doll. And when you put that together with what we've all witnessed, it's really it's pretty hard. It's a heartbreaking text, in my opinion. She said, "I'm not a rag doll. I'm somebody's child." She wrote, accusing him of being out of control from substances and alcohol. She testified that she believed that he was intoxicated during that attack, though she clarified that everyone's view of a blackout might differ. Now, despite the violence, the jury saw the exchanges from days later, showing Ventura and Combs communicating affectionately. In one message, Sean expressed a desire to engage physically with her, which she admitted under cross felt strange given the recent assault. He said, "I felt that way from Friday." She goes, "Not a good vibe. We need a different vibe than Friday." He goes, "Fuck Friday, LOL. I don't even want to do that again." She goes, "LOL, true." Combs later sent a card, and told Ventura that he loved her, which she replied, "Love you." Then let's get into her mental health treatment. She testified that she entered a 45-day inpatient treatment program at the Willow House in early 23 for mental health issues, including post-traumatic stress disorder. She said that she began writing her book during her stay. Under cross, the attorney noted that Willow House treats S compulsion and love addiction, but Ventura said that she was not treated for those conditions. Instead, she received therapies for PTSD, including eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, which, by the way, EMDR is a really cool therapy if you've ever done it, and somatic experiencing. She explained EMDR helps patients process traumatic memories, such as reimagining a scenario where they were trapped in a room but could instead walk out. She also underwent neurofeedback therapy about 5 or 6 times, describing it as a process where the brain waves are regulated while watching a screen. Cassie also confirmed that she has been prescribed Wellbutrin since 2022 for opiate addiction. Oh, actually, sorry, it's bupropion, not bupropion. Sorry, so it's not Wellbutrin. Buprenorphine. Buprenorphine. I can't say these. This is why I'm not a pharmacist. You get it. Cassie's testified too that she ended her relationship with him for good in August of 18 after seeing a photo of him with another woman. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but there's a little bit more detail that we went into. So we had the text messages. This woman who was identified in court as Gina, he had been dating, who apparently he had been dating for years. She said, "I just don't trust anymore. That last shot put the nail in the coffin." That's what she told him. "I just don't trust anymore. That last shot put the nail in the coffin." And she says, "I promised myself I wouldn't be with you anymore if you did that to me again. You lied to me." She never went away. And shortly after that, it was abuse prior. Okay. Is that what it is? Thank you, Barbara. Barbara's an RN, so she can tell me. Thank you, guys. She said she began dating her husband not terribly long after that, who she's now married to, Alex Fine. Now, earlier, somebody in here talked about how people are tired of victim blaming and victim shaming. And I want to talk about that in a minute, but I want to kind of do this, I don't know, recap is what we can kind of call it. I kind of want to establish the pattern because this goes so far beyond personal abuse. And we've heard so much about that. Like, there's nobody, including the defense, denying that Diddy is a domestic abuser. I mean, he's absolutely a domestic abuser. But here's what I need you guys to remember before I get into this. I need everyone to remember that this is a federal trafficking and racketeering trial, not a domestic violence case, not a domestic violence trial. Okay. I think he's guilty of everything. Again, that's my opinion. But the facts of the matter is that they have to prove trafficking and racketeering. What we're proving now is domestic violence. But remember, Guys, this is an 8-week trial, and we are a week in. Okay. But Cassie's testimony is so deeply personal and disturbing that to many of the public, it feels like it's just focusing mostly on her individual abuse. What's actually happening here is that prosecutors are using Cassie as the foundation witness to establish Diddy's pattern of coercive control, abuse, and S-fueled manipulation. These are key components that are needed in order to prove S-trafficking and RICO charges. So right now, while we have only heard Cassie's side, and we've heard a lot of abuse, this is laying the groundwork. This is giving Cassie single-handedly experienced more at the hands of Diddy than anybody else. Out of any previous partners, she's going to have the most insight into his world, into his dealings, into his business than anybody else because she was with him for a decade. All right. That is why she is such an important and significant witness. All right. And what it appears that they're doing is that they're showing the jury how Diddy operated in his private life, how he used fear, how he used power and substances and violence to control Cassie, and later how that control extended into others in his circle and alleged trafficking victims. They're basically showing this is how he was in a relationship. Is it too far of a jump to show, and as you will hear from other people who are testifying, that this is also how he acted in business? That's kind of what they're trying to do. Now, Cassie also testified about a violent assault that happened in 2013 as they prepared to leave for Drake's OVO festival in Toronto. Apparently, Cassie said Diddy became enraged over packing and attacked her. She claimed her 2 friends were present and tried to intervene but couldn't stop the assault. She described hitting her face on the bed frame, cutting her eyebrows, and ending up with a black eye. There were then other names that were brought up in this. D-Rock, whose real name is Damian Butler, who was a longtime Bad Boy affiliate, allegedly took her to the hospital afterwards to treat her injuries. The prosecution showed jurors photos of her bruised eye, which she confirmed was from that night. This is significant because it also ties high-profile industry events like Drake's festival and Diddy's associates like D-Rock to moments of alleged violence, drawing in Drake, D-Rock, and then later Suge Knight, which we've already talked a little bit about, into these narratives. Remember, because he left a freak. Suge and Diddy aren't friends. They're far from it. But Diddy left that freak off to go try to confront him. You know, if you remember right, there was he left his home during the middle of the thing. D-Rock, we now know, is the one who walked in and said Suge was at Mel's Diner, which is nearby. Diddy immediately left the freak off. To go confront him. Ignoring Cassie's pleas, like, please don't do anything violent. Don't do anything stupid. Right? She was terrified, describing she was screaming and crying and begging for him to stop. And when he returned, she said he refused to tell her what happened. We didn't hear anything, so I'm guessing, look, Diddy's a wannabe gangster. He beats women, right? That's what he beats women. He has other people handle his bigger issues when it comes to men. Suge Knight is a real gangster. I'm going to guess that Diddy bitched out. That's what I'm going to guess happened. Because Suge Knight is not the person you want to F with. And I've had somebody come here and say that, if you're afraid of Suge Knight, like, I'm not afraid of Suge Knight because I'm not in that world. But, like, I'm not going to go up and tell Suge Knight, like, confront him about anything. Like, I'm not stupid. He's the type of guy that could end you real easily from inside prison. Anyways, my point is, I guess he got too scared and didn't do anything. That's just my point. Yeah, all of his Tootsie Roll. Exactly, Jill. Exactly. For y'all who missed it, by the way, new civil suit dropped yesterday. I did a couple videos on it. How she compared him to a larger sized Tootsie Roll in his downstairs mix-up. But anyways, going back to the Suge Knight thing, that story was critical because it shows the jury Diddy's violent temper, paranoia, his obsession with power struggles, and I think his impulsivity, right? Even during his private S parties, which is what he looks forward to the most, his rivalry was still more important for him to leave. And it also raises the stakes a little bit because putting names like Suge Knight in the courtroom conversation, showing Diddy's longstanding gangland-style rivalries, that feeds into the federal racketing narrative, right? So that's kind of what the purpose of that is. So now let's talk about the humiliation for substances and coercion real quick about this. All right. So Cassie described, of course, multiple times about being forced to participate in the freak-offs. Oftentimes, these would include escorts, humiliation, substances. Marlene, I just said where the Tootsie Roll came from like 2 seconds ago. She described how Diddy and others would urinate on her, sometimes forcing a male escort to do it at the same time as Diddy. She testified that she would choke and feel overwhelmed by the acts, often while being under substances or intoxicated. She told the court that she felt trapped, degraded, and powerless to stop participating, especially as she became addicted to what Diddy supplied. And all of these details underline the elements of coercion, power imbalance, and psychological control necessary for the federal trafficking charges. So it's not just like, basically, it's not a consensual kink. The prosecution is trying to paint a picture of Diddy as a predator using acts like acts to dominate, degrade, and control his partners and others involved in these freak-offs. Now, we talked about the thing. Now, where the public is getting confused and why people are missing the bigger picture here, okay? Now, here's the thing. You guys are getting these recaps from me. I'm watching all of these different outlets putting this stuff out there so I can combine it and give it to you. We are not seeing and hearing everything. We are not seeing the nuances of like looks and faces and all this stuff because this is not televised. The best we get is an occasional sketch, and that's it, right? And so I think a lot of people are missing the bigger pictures. And as we've seen online, as we've been covering this, some people see this is only a domestic violence and question, where are these RICO and trafficking charges coming in? Others are focusing on Cassie's willingness to return to Diddy and accusing her of being complicit or a gold digger, which put a pin in that. I'm going to come back to that in about 2 seconds. Several commenters also argue that what's being presented so far about Diddy's personal relationship with Cassie is not about a wider trafficking problem. But here's the legal angle that prosecution is setting up. Cassie's the first witness, guys. She is the personal gateway into Diddy's methods. That's why she's so important. The prosecutors are going to expand the scope and with other witnesses and show how Diddy used these same tactics on the escorts, dancers, possibly minors, and transported people across state lines. That's the trafficking. Cassie said, remember, minors can never consent, ever. Remember that. Cassie's testimony is also key to establishing his patterns of control, violence, and coercion, which are the building blocks for providing trafficking under federal law, where consent becomes murky when substances, violence, and power dynamics are involved. Now, why do these names matter? And we just talked about this a little bit more. Okay. Why do Drakes and Suge Knights, who aren't accused of any crimes, why does it matter? Why are names like D-Rock, why do they matter? Well, it raises the profile and stakes of the trial. That's for one. Puts the jury in the mindset that Diddy's world is one of powerful enemies, allies, and a lifestyle that blurred relations, violence, and crime. It may also be a prosecution story to show how Cassie feared Diddy's public image and influence, making it harder for her to leave or seek help. So where are things going to go next? Well, according to the courtroom roadmap, other victims, employees, escorts, and dancers are expected to testify next, possibly laying out the interstate trafficking elements, financial payments, and organized operations that connect Diddy to the federal RICO charges. Cassie's testimony is basically Act 1, the deeply personal abuse, humiliation, and control. The prosecution is going to try to stack Act 2 and Act 3 with other voices showing how that personal abuse turned into criminal enterprise level exploitation. All right, so that hopefully gives you guys some insight into what's going on here. Now, here's the thing. I said I wanted to go back and put a pin in the people who are saying people focusing on Cassie's willingness to return to Diddy and accusing her of being complicit or a gold digger. Okay, I want to talk about this. Okay, I want to talk about this because I get very frustrated with this. Unfortunately for me, fortunately or unfortunately I have more knowledge and experience with trauma than I want to. Okay. I know what it's like to continuously try to get affection and approval from the people who you think you love or you think are supposed to love you. I know what it's like to try to give them just what they want, to shut them up, even if you don't want to do it, just because you want to keep the peace. Especially when things like violence are involved. I also know that Cassie was 19 years old when they met. And despite what people say, well, they didn't start dating until she was 21, 22. Well, maybe that's true, but grooming starts early. Cassie is very attractive. I've said that multiple times, especially when she was young. She's a very pretty woman. Diddy likes women. There's no way that he wasn't interested from the moment. I feel like that's a safe thing to say, because Diddy cares about appearances and how they look. Cassie's beautiful. That's just one of those things. So you're not going to convince me that grooming didn't start initially. That's why, again, the 10-record contract that she never got to put out was not standard for the industry. People who have seen her contract with him say that this is not standard. This basically ties her to him for her entire career, the way that he wrote that contract out. Remember, she only ever put out one album despite recording, hundreds of songs. And the songs she did put out were good. Me and You's a bop, y'all. Listen to it last night. By the way, you guys want to help Cassie? Go stream her songs. Go stream her songs. They're good anyways. But my point is that he trapped her for her career, for her, financially, physically. He broke her down, her confidence, broke down her independence. If she tried to leave, he sent goons after her. That is not somebody willingly there. That is somebody keeping the peace for self-preservation. And I've said it once, and I will say it again. If you are somebody privileged enough to be able to make the if you are, I'm going to say it this way: if you are a man privileged enough to make that comment, it is a reflection of who you are as a man. And I would warn any woman to stay away from you. If you are a woman making that comment, then congratulations. You are privileged to not be a statistic. You are privileged enough to not be one of the many countless women who are a victim of abuse and domestic violence and extreme control. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. That's good. But there's a lot of women out there. And maybe what I'm going to say for you is don't open your mouth about what you think things are when you truly have no idea. All right? When you have no insight into that world. And I will continue to say this as much as we need to say this, because whenever I make these comments, these videos, we get those comments. And if you want to disagree with me, disagree with me. If you want to disagree with me, in a short or a reel or a TikTok video, then bear in mind that you risk me humiliating you publicly when I make a comment, if I do a comment response to it, which I've been known to do. Especially, I know you guys want attentions, and I'll give it to you sometimes, using it as a learning opportunity, and it does not look good for you. Just saying. Anyways, this is what we have going into midday. They're at lunch. They might be coming back any minute, and we'll have the afternoon update. I'm going to work on, in the meantime, trying to get that one thing I was telling you guys about with Jonathan Oddi and the escorts put together. And so hopefully we can have that later today as well, maybe in its own separate video. And yeah, that's what I got. So TikTok, don't go away. I'm going to come talk to you guys in about 2 seconds. For Instagram and YouTube, thank you guys so much for hanging out. Make sure to subscribe, hit that follow button. Insta, if you came in late, this is all recorded on YouTube. It's the same name on every platform, Just in the Nick of Crime, if you guys want to take a look at it. If you missed anything, and again, we're going to do an evening recap as well. I try to do them around 4 to 4:30 p.m. Central Time, because court's already let out for the day at that point, and then we can do that and you just have it for the evening. So that's kind of what my goal is. And then again, quick reminder, and I'll say this again on the other one. Next week, we will be doing one recap a day. I will be out of town on vacation, and I'm going to try to enjoy that and give you all the recaps in the evening. Have a good one, guys. I will talk to y'all soon, and we'll be back with the end of the day recap in a few hours. Bye, everyone.